Welcome back to Parents Read the Darndest Things. I'm Kayla. I'm with CPL from Adult Services, and this is...
I'm Laine from Columbus Public Library and Children's, and we read a book.
We did read a book.
We read a book.
Alright, so if you're not familiar, Parents Read the Darndest Things is a book club collaboration between the Children's Department and the Adult Services Department, and it's for caregivers of young children. The whole point of the book club is just to read good things. We read different genres, different topics all the time. It's just a chance for parents and caregivers to come together by reading something great and de-stressing when they talk about it. So this month we read a book from the poetry series by Amanda Lovelace. The series is the Women Are Some Kind of Magic series. Yes, Women Are Some Kind of Magic. And this is the first in the series. It is called The Princess Saves Herself in this one. So it was released in 2017, and I didn't know this until after I started prepping to talk about it, but the author was about 25 when she wrote it. She was completing her first bachelor's degree. So that was a little fun, what did I do with my life moment. For me, personally.
I have not published a book.
Same.
And I don't think I'm going to. So,
yeah,
kudos.
Good for
to
her.
Lovelace. Yeah.
Hooray, Amanda Lovelace. We're really proud of
Yay.
you. She has won since 2 Goodreads Choice Awards for her poetry. Because that collection alone has 4 books, and I think she has at least 2 others. She's working on another collection presently. I'm a big fan of Goodreads Choice Awards because it's the awards chosen by the people, the popular vote. It's very different from the New York Times bestsellers or other niche awards.
Or journals even. I know in kids literature, journals, review journals are what dictates if a book has awards or not.
Yes.
And if kids chose, it would be different. You would have a lot more dork diaries, silly graphic novels, and less literary merit. Whereas Kirkus Reviews is a big one, and they review based on the literature and the merit.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be interesting for kids literature to have a people's choice like Goodreads does.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Then you get into would the parents pick it?
Yeah.
Would they be I think this is what my kid is always reading, or this is what my kid can get out of reading it?
Oh, or just I don't know, kids have such funny restrictions because it's things for points or for school or things they're not interested in, or a lot of the times parents push a genre on their kids and say, well, you should only read fiction, but nonfiction or even books of poetry don't really get hyped up as much in children's literature.
Yes.
Which is interesting for this book.
But I do think it would be interesting if there was some system developed where kids could vote just on what they like to read.
Yeah.
And then from there you would figure out what they were getting out of it instead of trying to push something on them to get something out of it. Oh, I love to read dork diaries. Oh, I love to read this graphic novel. Why are they all reading it? What do they like about it? And then we would learn from that as educators.
I like that idea. I like the idea of a free concept reading. Mm-hmm. And you have a lot of kids who don't like stories. It doesn't mean they don't like to read. It means they don't like stories. Mm-hmm. So things like poetry they don't get exposed to it unless it's poetry that's so out of reach for them. So no kid's gonna, I don't know, pick up an Oscar Wilde book and go, yes, this touches my soul. But something that's approachable and something that's easy and relatable.
Yes.
I think they do gravitate towards.
Yeah.
Or funny and humorous.
Yes. And I know, especially for much younger, smaller kids, poetry is a great option.
Oh, yeah.
Because they really respond to it, and language development.
Rhyming is the go-to move for reading with kids who don't like to sit still and read.
Yeah.
Because there's a natural bounce to it, which is lacking from this book of poetry.
Almost for grown-ups.
Have we talked about that, about the lack of rhyme in this book and what we thought about that? Because I like it.
Yeah, that is a point that I wanted to address, because when I plan kind of what we're going to talk about or things that I want to bring up with you, I look at what other people thought from booktubers or blogs or different review things. and people were very harshly divided.
Roasting it. They
Yes.
were roasting this book.
They
for
didn't
being
like it, which was super.
Tumblr quotes. And I was like,
It was
"Ooh,
really,
that's
really surprising
harsh."
to me.
Yeah.
I didn't get it, and like, I was definitely already biased towards this book, like from the get, because I was like, oh, it's got the Goodreads Choice Awards, like, that's great. I was like, she's a millennial. I'm into that, like, relatable content. And then, you know, she dedicates the books each time to like an author or like a literary character that's like super relatable. Harry Potter characters, Hunger Games characters. She has poems about like being book mad and everything like that. And I was like,
That's like,
I like it.
So
And then people hated it, and I was like, oh.
I read some like vicious reviews
Yeah.
that were just, this book is trash, you can't just hit the enter key and it be
Yes.
poetry.
Yes. People had a real problem with the way it was visually put on the page, because it would be like a word or a couple of words
Broken
broken
down.
down. I didn't think that was problematic, but maybe I just like, I was more focused on the words than the way the words looked.
Yeah, I like
But I could see why people didn't like it. I mean, it is a part of the poetry, how it looks.
It is. I think it actually, in the sense that old poems used words to create tone. So like falling is a word that naturally declines. So it sounds like what it means. And her poems are broken apart in a way that produces its own tone.
Yeah.
It's weird, but I don't know if weird warrants like a scathing review.
I don't think it means
Yeah.
it's bad.
I don't think it means it's bad.
People also like aesthetically compared her a lot to the author of Milk and Honey.
Yes.
And so that made me, people love Milk and Honey. And
But
that
they
author's
didn't like
work.
this one.
But then
Yeah.
they didn't like this one. And aesthetically, they're
the
almost
same
the same. Yeah, they're hardly different.
And it kind of is a few years ago, and I was really into this. I like would cry all the time because I would pull up these spoken word poems,
Yeah.
and I had I didn't relate to these poems at all. But the way they were spoken and the energy,
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, I feel that. Like, I feel that.
I felt like that's kind of
This
like
is
what
similar.
this aesthetic is going for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's spoken word poetry in text.
Yes.
And I think that I would be curious to see like a Venn diagram of people who like spoken word poetry and people who like this.
Yes.
And vice versa, like who
Yeah.
doesn't like spoken word
Yeah.
and who doesn't like this text, and see if
Or
there's
people who like more like traditional poetry.
Yes.
And then who don't like this, and then who like both. And the comparisons are very interesting to me, which is a question I would pose to people who want to discuss.
What do you think?
What do you think about it aesthetically? What do you think about the tone of it? So I think the argument of aesthetics and whether people are pro or con also leans into the argument of language and whether you're pro or con, because more traditional poetry, like Oscar Wilde, Shakespeare, whatever, is heavier than like modern contemporary spoken word, which is what I would compare this to. And so I think people are also very on the fence about that. Like, this is very simplistic, no nonsense. And that's part of the aesthetic, but it's also just like, we don't have any fluff around it, is where
Yeah.
I was feeling it. But I think some readers could take that as like, it's trite, it's boring, it's lazy writing. But on the other side, you could take it as, we're just getting to the point. I'm not distracting. For poetry, like, you don't need a distraction.
Right.
She's not giving us like a very elaborate story. She's just giving us emotion. So I don't need descriptors around that.
You don't need it polished.
Yes.
Yeah, that's kind of, I guess, the difference between if you like punk,
Mm-hmm.
you have a raw intensity in punk. Like, it's just, it is what it is. And then there's Mozart. And
I like this comparison.
There's neither one that's the better of the two, but one is very polished and refined, even if it is conveying an emotion.
Yes.
And the other is just like, this is it. And I feel like her poetry is very much, this is it. Like,
Yes.
This is stripped bare, this is how I feel, in as few words as possible. I had mixed feelings about it. I didn't love it,
Yes.
but it was easier for me to get through. So
Mhm.
instead of having to like scan my poetry
Mhm.
and decide all these things or what it could mean, I know what it meant.
Yes.
And I think that that's easier and more accessible in a way
I agree.
than a lot of other things. And that's why I like spoken word poetry too, because it's accessible. Like I can understand it without having to think so hard. And that might sound like super dumb.
No, I think it's a
down,
good point,
but I
because
like it.
I think accessibility in reading today is a great point for children, for adults, for teens, for whoever, because you don't have the time to read like you used to.
Yeah.
So if we're just going to get to the point with it, I don't think anybody should take a shot at you for that. Like,
And
you said,
what's
you read it,
wrong?
you understood it.
Yes. And what's wrong with
Why
just
did you need to
feeling
wait?
it? Like what's wrong with just
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
yo, I feel bad. Or this is how I felt. Like if you go through a breakup, do you want to like stand there and go, I'm fine, or do you want to go, it sucked? Like let me write it down and I'm going to purge all these emotions.
Yes.
And I like that aspect of it. I thought that like the vulnerability
Mhm.
was what made it great.
Yes.
Even if it's not refined and polished and, you know, a 12th grade reading level,
Yeah,
it didn't need to be.
I agree. I think
I
like
think it was great.
I like how you're saying it was like a purge, because that was definitely like the function of the book.
Yeah.
You know, and I neglected to mention in the beginning, but it is in sections if you have not read it.
Yes.
Where we go for the princess, then the damsel, then the queen, and then you. And it's her kind of narrating through the emotions that she's feeling, and as she's writing them, she's purging them, and it's her growing as a person and as she gets through those emotions. And really, if you read through the rest of the series, it's all about growth. So, you know, you have other books, it's like the witch doesn't burn in this one, the mermaid gets her voice back at the end of this one.
Which is very feminist, and if
Yeah.
we're talking about emotions,
Yes.
it's kind of taking back that women are overly emotional.
Yes.
And owning it in a way that's, I don't know if powerful is the right word.
I was gonna say it's using your emotions as a power.
As a power, it's taking it back. It's the princess saves herself.
Yes.
It's saying like, yes, I am a woman. I have emotions, and here they are. Like you can read them if you want.
Yeah.
I think that that is a statement of its own. To me,
Yeah, I can agree with that. I think it's brave to write it down
yes.
and put it out there. She was self-published at first before she was picked up by a major publishing company. And I think that alone took guts, just to write a book anyway, to write a book of poetry that was very vulnerable for you and definitely personal.
I mean, can you imagine like
That anybody
going through
could
your
read?
Facebook when you were 20 and
Yeah.
publishing it? Like publishing
Yeah.
all your deep thoughts? I mean, no, I'm not even brave enough to do that. I'm not going to publish my poetry. That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So I think, yeah, that really speaks to how she took what was emotional for her and turned it into her strength. She weaponized it.
Yeah, I think it's awesome.
And she used it to like provide for herself and stand up for herself.
And you know, people create new genres and new mediums in art and music and in poetry. So I think that anything new just automatically brings the criticism.
True.
I mean,
I'm
if it's
afraid of
new,
this.
it's
I'm not
different.
used to this.
Oh, I don't like it because it's not like what I used to do.
Yes.
But that's kind of a new standard in living in an age where things rapidly change. You don't have years to develop. Trends come and go very quickly. I don't mind it, but I would like to know other people's opinions on these kind of trends. Like we know that this style of writing is a trend.
Yes.
Is it one that's going to stick around? I don't know.
Yeah. Is
That would
it
be
is it a
interesting.
trend that you like? Do you wish that we could bring back the poetry styles of old? Is it something that you find relatable? I mean, I think that this is a great example of how far it takes you to embrace and accept the state of your own mental health.
Yes, absolutely.
And then be vulnerable about it, express it to others, and how healthy that can be.
Simply. You
Yeah.
know, it doesn't have to be overly flowery. It's
Yeah.
just a simple statement turned into a new form of poetry. And I didn't love it. Like it's not my favorite book in the world.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed reading it, and I think I would enjoy the trend of this style. I'm just wondering if it's going to be one that lasts.
Yeah, I can see that. I think that's a fair question.
Yeah.
I definitely liked this. I have read this series, and I like the
Mhm.
series as a whole. The first book is not my favorite, but the whole series I like a lot. And so I am on the side of I hope the trend is here to stay, or I'm at least interested to see how the trend further develops, what it could evolve into. But really what I like about the trend is like what it represents, and that people aren't afraid to be expressing themselves that way. And I think it definitely shows younger people that this is like a healthy thing to do,
Yes.
is to express yourself this way, and that there's no shame in being vulnerable like that.
And there's no shame in putting something out there despite criticism.
Yes.
I think even Milk and Honey had its fair share of criticism for its format.
Yes.
It had a lot of fans, but I also think it had the same review types. This is, this is very Tumblr-y. This is something I could do in my sleep. This is whatever.
Yes.
But it kind of goes back to the point of like abstract art. But you didn't do it.
But you didn't do it.
But
And
you
if
didn't do
you
it.
tried it, let's see how you would do.
And
It's
I
going to
think-
be a lot harder than you think.
And I think that's the difference, is that she tried it.
Yes.
And she's made something that people relate to. If they could get past it's different. If they could get past, well, I have my preconceived notions of what it seems like. And they did read the whole thing as a whole and accept it as what it is, and not compared it to what they think it should be.
Yes.
It's just new and different. Maybe this is a taste thing, or maybe it's a open-mindedness thing. I would be curious to know if our readers did try it and what they thought about it afterwards.
Yes.
Like, what did you think about the format afterwards? I'm curious about it.
I think no matter what,
Yay or
like,
nay?
whether or not it was your cup of tea, I think it's important right now, during a pandemic, to read something that's escapist, like poetry. So even if you read this and it wasn't your favorite type of poetry, tell us what is. Recommend something to us, we'll pick it up. Or if poetry at all is not your jam and you just don't want to get into it like that, what is something to read that lets you escape reality like that? So like, let's get rid of the pandemics and the politics and all of like these horrifying, hurtful things that are just like bogging you down and dragging you down. And you've got kids to take care of, or parents to take care of, or
if you write
you
your
can't leave the
own
house.
Like, if you write your own poetry, which are you leaning? Are you leaning toward this more modernized or less modernized? What do you write? What do you like? And that's on the princesses herself and our thoughts. And we're excited to know your thoughts.
So next time we're going to be reading Crescent City by Sarah J. Maas. If you're a YA fan, then you already know about it. You know who she is.
The Court of Thorns and Roses and Throne of Glass series, which I love Sarah J. Maas, and I am super excited to talk about Crescent City because I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of opinions, and there's romance, and it is not family friendly-ish. It's more family friendly than her other books, but still, word of caution to those of you who were thinking about reading it with your kids.
It has been marketed as an adult book.
It is an
not
adult
a
book.
YA book. It's
Or
her
new
first
adult.
adult book.
New adult or adult? Either way, 18 plus.
Adults in there.
It's adult. So, but I'm really excited about it. And I can't wait to talk
And that
about
one's longer.
It is longer.
So pick that one up, check it out from the library, whatever you want to do with it.
The audiobook is great.
Is it?
It is so good.
Ooh,
Yes.
I'm picky about my audio.
I like the audio.
But
It's good.
it's a long read. It's a good read. So pick that one up and get started on it with us.
We're going to be on our Discord always. So you can find the link on our Goodreads.
Okie dokie. So that wraps up today's discussion of Parents Read the Darndest Things. I'm Kayla.
And I'm Laine.
And it was awesome to be here with you guys. So
Well,
join us next time. Yeah, we'll catch you then.
We are springing into summer learning at the Chattahoochee Valley Libraries, and the program you just attended is one of the ways you can earn completions. Just go to cvlga.org and look for Spring into Summer Learning. You can register yourself and your family online, and then start reading and attending our online events. That's all you have to do. We're giving away weekly gift certificates, and every completion you make enters you into a grand prize drawing for tablets, games, gifts, and more. Remember, you have to register to win, cvlga.org, and we'll see you online again real soon.